Back in February, I visited Welney to make a film to help beginners identify ducks. What I want to do now is just say a little bit about some of the kit that we used on that day, the binoculars and the scope. So I had a SF, a 10-42. Actually, to be honest, if you're out looking for wildfowl, for ducks and so on in the winter, any decent birding binocular will do the job. I went for a 10. Some people would prefer a 10 for those kind of circumstances, just because it gives you a bit more reach than an 8. And this one is particularly good it's particularly good in many ways, but it's got a very wide field of view. So of course that makes it easier to find what you're looking for. But even with a 10, there'll be birds that are too far away, which is where a scope comes in. And I had the Gavia Conquest scope with me, which is fairly new to the ZEISS range. And let me just talk you through the Gavia. So it's a full-size scope, 85mm objective here at the front end. It's got a lens hood, of course. Now with that big objective, it gets a lot of light in. Going right back to the other end, you've got a zoom eyepiece on here, 30 times through to 60 times, so a good range, and it's an eyepiece that delivers good images right the way through the range. Focusing, wraps around the barrel, quick focusing, accurate focusing, so you can get on the subject quickly, get it sharp. And one other nice feature, it's got a rotating collar, which is actually more useful than you might think. So if you're in a hide, for example, trying to get a view, that can be quite useful. And that goes, as you can see, all the way around. Just a couple of tips on using scopes. You need a decent tripod with a scope. Otherwise, if it's not stable, it's just not going to do the job very well. When you're setting it up, try and set it up. Now, let's turn this round. So that when you're looking through it, you're walking into a gap between the legs. You're not walking into a leg and knocking the scope. And a lot of people, particularly when they're new to birding, new to scopes, they'll struggle with actually seeing anything through the scope. And here's a good trick, thanks to my friend Mark for telling me this trick. But if you look down into the scope, you'll see a bright white circle. It's the exit pupil. So the trick is just lower your eye onto that spot. Now you don't actually touch it, you've got the eye cup up, but lower it down onto that bright white spot and you'll see what the scope is looking at. There you go, top tip for helping someone use a telescope. Oh, just a couple more things about the Gavia. So this is a really good eyepiece, it's really versatile. But if you want even more versatility, you can buy an adapter for the Gavia, which means you can then use a whole host of different astronomical eyepieces with this scope. So wide angle eyepieces, high power eyepieces, and they may not be as expensive as you think they're going to be. The other things ZEISS have produced is a range of adapters so that you can use your smartphone and take pictures, so phone scoping adapters, and also adapters to use a camera and take photos through the scope. So even more options.